Altman from ChatGPT talks about, he believes that there'll be billion-dollar companies that are 1, 2, 3 person like companies because of the power of AI. Let me ask you this: how important do you think building a personal brand is in 2024, 2025, and beyond to growing a business?
It's credibility, which is one of the most important things. It's authenticity, which is one of the most important things. It comes with a lot of heat and a lot of smoke, which I don't think many people are prepared for. And it depends what you're selling. I mean, a personal brand is exactly that, a personal brand. If you have a company, then your company has a brand ethos. So you have to, what's the point of a brand in the first place? The point of a brand in the first place is credibility and relatability and authenticity.
And trust.
And trust. So it has to be done at some regard, at some level. You can decide if you want to hide behind a company to protect your personal life, or if you can be the face of your company yourself and suffer. There's advantages and disadvantages to both. Your personal life suffers when you're a personal brand.
True.
But
especially when you're Andrew Tate.
Well, yeah, in my particular case, but then also there's been massive and monumental benefits. There are some good things about it.
Right.
So it depends what you want to do and what industry you want to get involved in. A lot of people ask me about personal branding and come and say, should I do a personal brand? And I'd often argue that it doesn't matter if you should or not. Firstly, can you? Can you do a personal brand?
And what are you reverse engineering, or what are you optimizing for? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, but I mean, can you do a personal brand? What about you as a person is going to get people vested in you? And if you actually go down the rabbit hole and analyze it, you're going to realize that unless you've suffered and had a difficult life and have a bunch of interesting stories and war stories and all the things we're talking about, all the bad things, you're going to suffer to build a personal brand anyway. If you're born into a rich family and your life goes well and everything's fine and now you have a bunch of money and you try and start a personal brand based on the fact that you have money, nobody's going to care. Nobody's interested in all the good things that have happened to you, and nobody's interested in how nice your life is. Nobody cares. Maybe if you show enough money, you can get some temporary interest, but not for long. The only people who can build a brand off having a perfect life are women. Look, I'm beautiful. Look, I'm in Louis Vuitton. Look, I'm skiing. Chicks can do that because they're physically attractive. Men can't. All the men you can name with truly strong personal brands have very interesting stories, and interesting stories usually involve danger, risk, pain, suffering. Those are the things.
Triumph, overcoming.
Triumph over, oh, exactly. So if you say, oh, should I build a personal brand? Well, can you? And if you can, then perhaps you should consider it. But if you can't, then you have to sit and say, well, how could I? And the only way you could is to suffer. Are you prepared to suffer in the real world, not on the internet, not pretending to suffer on Twitter? Are you prepared to suffer in the real world, the genuine consequence and the genuine risk that it's going to take for you to be interesting enough for people to sit and want to listen to you, for you to have a strong personal brand? That's the actual question.
True.
When people say about personal branding. Because Batman's personal brand is kicking everyone's ass, and he only did that because his parents got killed. So you have to decide, do you want to have would you choose to have your parents killed to be Batman? At that level. So, because I think a lot of personal branding, especially at the beginning of personal branding, you could buy a fast car and that was it. You could rent a car and talk some shit. But everyone's bored of that now.
Right.
I kind of feel like I've raised the bar and kind of ruined it for everyone. It's kind of
1,000,000%.
It's kind of hard now to like be interesting. To like, yeah, but did they throw you in a dungeon in Romania? No, boring. Boring.
Do you have a Bugatti? 59 cars.
I kind of ruined it. Yeah, do you have a Bugatti? Lambo broke. No, but like
the reason I ask is because we have, a big part of our audience. We have a newsletter. We have a school community, and we teach different parts of personal branding. So I'm curious if you have any tips. Obviously, no one's going to have that.
Yeah, there's my tips for you. Go suffer.
And share those stories in an empowering way with
people.
Go
suffer and tell people all the lessons you learned along the way, and people will respect you knowing that you've been through something which is difficult. Respect has always lied on the other side of fear. It still does right now. The reason we all watch the big boxing match and have so much respect for the men who get in there is because it's scary to do. And even if you don't cerebrally sit and think, I would be scared to fight in Madison Square Gardens in front of all these people, well then go sign up for a fight and you'll learn very quickly that you are scared, because now you've even just started training for it. You're nowhere near the event and you're nervous all the time and you don't want to do it because it's terrifying. Respect lies on the other side of fear. So people are going to respect you if you do things that they'd be scared to do themselves. And then they're going to say, well, I don't want to go through that because that sounds scary. That sounds terrible. Let me at least try and get the lessons from it. And he's gone through it, so I can learn from his experience, or I can learn from his mistake. I think as AI, we're talking about them replacing salesmen. Well, AI could replace a lot of personal brands too now. ChatGPT is pretty good. Some people are so basic and so vaporous and so thin that ChatGPT could talk the same kind of garbage they talk. Unless you have some suffering to anchor to, how can you have any kind of personal brand at all?
Yeah,
And maybe I'm just talking from my own experience because my brand is built on pain and suffering, and maybe I'm trying to cope my way for having all the bad things happen to me that have happened to me. But if I didn't have them all, I don't know what I'd talk about.
Would people listen? Would people care?
But what would I talk about? I have a fast car? Okay, I have a fast car. But the coolest thing about me having a fast car is I grew up with absolutely nothing. The coolest thing about me having a fast car is that they tried to take it off me and threw me in a dungeon. The coolest thing about me having a fast car is when I'm gonna get back in it after they failed to seize it off me when I was on an Interpol red notice for garbage. That's the cool part of it.
Yeah.
Without the dark, there's no light.
Yeah. There's no appreciation for the light. It's interesting. It's like, kind of like, we're working on getting Dana White on the podcast, Conor McGregor on the podcast. And so many people love Conor's story because it's classic. He was a plumber in Ireland.
Yep.
And he came from very humble beginnings, dirt poor, was trying to figure out how to make it work. And now the story is, people champion him because they see versions of themselves in him, right? In their low situation, their low challenge.
Yeah.
And then today he's, obviously been the biggest thing ever.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Conor McGregor?
I like Conor.
Have you ever talked to him or connected with him?
Yeah, I have to be careful who I say I know, but
Gotcha.
I've yet to meet him in person. But I like Conor. I have respect for anybody who stands up for what they believe in. And truthfully, even if you disagree with me on every single subject, if you stand up for what you believe in and you act remotely honorably, I have respect for you as a person. And it takes a lot of different types of people to keep the world functioning. I don't like snakery, and I don't like deception, and I don't like dishonesty. But I feel like Conor, I'm sure we don't agree on everything. I feel like he's an honest person. He probably says what he means and means what he says. And that's enough for me to get my base respect as a man.
Yeah.
And he has another fight coming up soon. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah. Maybe, who knows? Maybe after we'll organize a little round table, me, you, and Conor. Wouldn't
that would be a very interesting conversation. We'll see how that one goes.
I'll work on it.
But yeah, you're right. His affinity was with the common man because he comes from a common place, as do I. But I feel like if you're trying to build a personal brand, I think people now are looking for, I think the internet landscape is also changing because I don't think people are looking to be just entertained anymore. 3 or 4 years ago, even 5 years ago, you could be entertaining and people cared.
Right.
Because life wasn't perhaps as difficult as it was. Inflation wasn't so high, whatever you want to call it. But they just watch a show and go, okay, he's being a clown, I'm entertained, fine. I think people are looking for answers now. I think people are looking for solutions. And they're only going to believe and trust in the answers you give them if you've tried and tested them, which requires suffering. I think that the internet landscape is changing. People aren't so interested in watching people just have fun anymore.
Yeah.
People aren't so interested in watching these idiots just put on makeup anymore. Now they want a solution for their problem because their rent is due and it must be paid. Well, how do we find a person we can trust and why can we trust him?
Yeah.
And the easiest answer is, well, because I've been through X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
That's how you prove you can be trusted. How do you prove you have discipline? Run a marathon. Then you can prove you have discipline. So for all the people who listen to your newsletter who want a personal brand, okay, go do something extremely difficult and tell them about it and tell them what you learned and prove you did it, and then do something else and continue to compound all those difficult things in your life until you become a better version of yourself, which makes you more competent, which also amplifies your success, and everything works together, and before you know it, you have a huge personal brand. But if you don't suffer, if you don't go through pain, I don't know how you're even going to have one anymore.
Well said. Well said. Now,